Hi, Mary back again, and I hope you are enjoying this series. So today we're going to talk about fabrics and what different kinds of fabrics you can use to quilt. Now remember, I'm talking about the practical quilt, the one that we're going to use to keep warm. You might want to think that that tends towards using heavier fabrics like corduroy or minky or something like that. What we're going to get our warmth from is the batting in the middle, and you don't have to necessarily get that from the fabric itself. So you can pick a lightweight fabric that's just a plain cotton. This is calico. So what is a calico? Okay, well, while we're there for a minute, this is considered a calico. All these are considered calicos. They're just a kind of a print, a small little print that you're going to get a big piece of the print, the picture, in small strips. I like the weight. Let's talk about the weight for a minute first. So I like the weight of a calico and a cotton that is this weight for my tops. One thing that I've never had good experience with is mixing these lighter weight tops with heavier things, like mixing it with a flannel. A flannel's 100% cotton too, but when you mix it together with this lighter weight 100% cotton, it might wear well, it might not. So personally, I kind of like to keep everything on top the same weight. So you either use all flannels or use all calicos or use all corduroys, or you get the idea. I like this fabric. It's really pretty. But if you think about it, that if you're going to potentially in a quilt cut it down to just a 2.5 inch strip, you're not necessarily going to see the pattern. You're going to see a whole bunch of partial flowers and not necessarily a bunch of whole flowers, whereas in these smaller prints you're going to see the whole flowers, right? Here's another example of that. So these are pretty butterflies and I really like it, and of course I like purple, so this is a nice pretty fabric to me. But again, when you cut it down into 2.5 inch strips, you're pretty much going to get half a butterfly on the left and half a butterfly on the right. This is the kind of fabric I would pick if I was going to cut like 4-inch squares or 6-inch squares. But it is pretty in purple, right? And then of course you've always got, most quilting stores will have rooms full of your solids. Now there's solids and then there's solids. This would be found in a solids room, but if you can see in the camera, it's also kind of a two-toned, kind of a jewel tone. And these are really pretty and I really like them. They work well because with the two-tone you can use them with a wider variety of coordinating fabrics, but sometimes a solid is a better choice. This kind of pattern is nice because in a print like this, it doesn't matter which way you cut it. If you cut it this way or if you cut it this way, it's pretty much going to look the same to your eye. Now you'll have other fabrics like this pretty fabric, for example. If you have a quilt pattern that says, cut this into strips that are the same width wide, well, they may look pretty when you first cut them this way and you've got all of your whales swimming the same direction, but then the next thing you know, you're sewing it on the left side or the right side of another piece and your whales are kind of swimming upstream or downstream. So this kind of a fabric is what we refer to as a fabric with a nap. So when we talk about what is a nap, this is what it means. It means that if you cut it the wrong way or you sew it the wrong way, you're going to have a picture that's upside down. So a nap means that there's a definite top and a definite bottom. Now, some things are not quite as clear. To me, these clouds have a definite top and a definite bottom. But to the eye, when you sew it on, it's not quite as obvious as whales swimming upside down. So some things are a little bit more nappy than others. Here's another example. This fabric is real pretty. But it might be directional. Does it matter to you if your horseshoes go up or if your horseshoes go down or if your horseshoes are laying on their side? It might make a difference depending on which pattern you pick. Cute fabric, huh? There are some fabrics that have naps that you wouldn't think, like corduroy, for example, has a nap. If you rub it one way, it turns a lighter or darker color. You rub it the opposite direction, and it will turn the opposite. Velvet is the same way. Velvet definitely has a nap. When we're talking about naps, remember that some stripes will also appear to have a nap. Again, depending on which way you want the fabric to go when you're cutting it, stripes may or may not be a good choice when you're making your first quilts before you get to know how patterns will translate certain pieces. You might want to avoid stripes in the beginning. One more thing I want to mention about fabric is there is also fabric that is extra wide fabric. So most of your fabrics that you're going to buy, and especially your calicos, like these types of fabrics, are going to be about 42 to 44 inches wide. They also make fabrics that are wider, like 108 inches wide. A lot of times people like to use those for their borders. And they're great for your borders because then you don't get a seam in your border, which, you know, to some people makes a difference. Most of the time people buy the 108 inch wide for backing fabric, and it's wonderful for backing fabric. And then you can also use it for your sheeting. But also remember that when you're looking for solids, or, you know, kind of that, here's another piece. Here's another piece. This is a good piece that was a backing fabric, but I use it for a lot of piecing on the top too. I just kind of like it. I think it's pretty. It can be more economical to buy backing fabric if it's fabric that you like and will use it in borders or in sashings. So, and we'll talk about those words later, right? So it can be more economical. So you might always want to check when you're looking for just a solid, or where you're looking for a neutral color to go into your quilt, look in the extra wides and see if there isn't something there that you might want to use. So in our next video, we're going to talk about the different types of packaging when you go into a fabric store. How do I know how to buy fabric?